येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप तदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथामृतं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरद्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण। So yesterday we could see till the 22nd, right? So Canto First, Chapter 6, text 22nd we had covered. Okay. So some revision that okay, we'll see the slide. You are able to see that? So we saw that the Sadharma Pracha, the desire to inquire from Guru. So then we saw from Nitram Devotion. Okay. Keep the light. Better. Better, no?
Yes.
Fresh. Okay. So then we saw the accepting reverses in life. Narad Muni, how he left. These are another two examples. One is Parikshit Maharaj and Amrish Maharaj. And then we saw how the mendicant is supposed to travel and preach. That gives the faith and strength of mind. Then we saw the effect of seeing Lord's beautiful form. We saw that two things happen. What? The material forms and the spiritual forms we are seeing.
Satisfied, get satisfied, and come into the all the agitations.
All the agitations are removed and mind becomes satisfied by spiritual form. Yeah. Then we saw the meditation. Now the Lord is speaking to. Okay. So yesterday we were seeing that how one has to come out of comfort zone. That was the text 22. We are discussing that one has to cross over Rajogun, Tamagun, and even Sattvagun. Because Sattvagun also is binding. That binding is better than Sattvagun and Tamagun and Rajogun, but still it is a binding. And we saw that the goodness can create a spiritual lethargy. That somebody is qualified but don't want to take higher responsibilities. That is also comfort zone. And that comes in mode of goodness. Because he feels that other things I am doing nicely. I am getting up early, chanting my rounds, and then eating prasad on time, and then sleeping also on time. And then he is so nicely regulated that he don't preach only. So then that's how person goes in comfort zone. But then we saw that this comfort zone is not what our acharyas. So Narad Muni, the way here we see that Lord was not happy Narad Muni sitting in jungle and meditating. So he didn't want that. What he wanted? Hankering. And then
intensify.
And then he get the spiritual form and travel all over the world. Not only all over the world, all over the universe, even spiritual world also. So now Narad Muni was very peaceful in jungle, but Lord wanted him to come out of that comfort zone and go all over the world. And that's how he made that arrangement. We see that Narad Muni was not happy with the mode of goodness of Prachin Bari. He was doing so many yajnas, but he said out. So, similarly, the spiritual master also, in current scenario, wants us also to take some responsibilities and come out of that comfort zone. Otherwise, we just remain as a nice devotee practicing, but then we are not shouldering the responsibilities of spiritual master. So we should know that spiritual master is doing so much. I should also take some portion. I cannot take whole. I'll die only. But then at least 10% I can take, 5% I can take, 2% I can take. So we should shoulder the burden of our spiritual master and not become the burden of the shoulder of spiritual master. So like that. So that was the text 22.
So yesterday you talked about who to travel. So three criteria were mentioned in the purpose. So all three should be there to for anyone to travel, or any one or two will suffice.
Pardon?
So three criteria has to be there, or any one or two will suffice for anyone to travel.
That depends. That depends person to person. Depends policy to policy of different temples. Different temples will have different policies depending on the situation. So it will be like that. So there is no one kind of answer. It has to be seen. Yeah.
Guruji mentioning that how Lord is pleased when we shoulder the responsibility of spiritual master. Take his burden, not become burden on him or burden him. So we all have joined ashram and we wish that Gopal wish that we can preach Krishna consciousness, go out and give this knowledge to others. And we wish to do that also. But we see that our incapability of doing it, and I have personally seen myself also many times, and in case of other devotees also, many who have such zeal, but in time they don't realize that we are not sufficiently purified or to give Krishna consciousness to others, and that in that zeal or in that passion of preaching as thinking I'm shouldering, I'm taking responsibility on spiritual master's load, and one himself become very dhila in practice principles. So how it should be done? It's very easy to say that we have to take burden, but in taking burden we only smashed, crushed. So what is the balance of this?
Now the thing is, there is always a dynamic. For example, now we are preaching. Question comes is, are we qualified to preach? Are you qualified to preach? Who can preach? Who has realized Krishna? Who is pure? Who can impart that faith to others? So, if you see from technical point of view, first we are brahmacharis, not sannyasis. By Vedas, only sannyasis can preach. Brahmacharis has nothing to give and take with preaching. They can assist sannyasi. You can do madhukari and things like that. So, you don't find in Vedic system brahmachari is traveling. That started with the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur only. And we see that somebody has to be a preacher, means first he has to become a devotee. Then are we devotees? So once our Jayadvat Maharaj was asked this that some topic came about devotee. So then Jayadvat Maharaj was saying, devotee? That is a very big thing. Like that. He was like, because they have seen Prabhupada, what devotee means. For us, we feel that whoever is having tilak, kantimala, that's what is a devotee. But it's not like that. So by that sense, we ourselves have so many anarthas, and we ourselves have so many incapacities. And then at one side, we are supposed to take care of our own spiritual life. Other side, Prabhupada is telling that out, help others, like that. So now here we have to see that when the epidemic is there, and then the doctor is there, and doctor is seeing that 1,000 patients are there, but he is alone. What he does is, he trains some few compounders, those are assistants. They just know how to inject, or they know how to bandage or things like that. They are not doctors. But then doctor says that okay, सब एक ही disease वाले हैं, same injection देना है. So from today on, for next 1 month, you are the doctor. And then he starts treating them, although he is not a doctor. Why? Because there is emergency. So like that. So now also things are under emergency only, because people are going to hell, and if we can do some little help, few people at least can be saved. We cannot save the whole world, but 10, 20, 100, 1,000, if we can save, that will be very nice. So the dynamic will be always there. Preacher should never feel that I am qualified, and then so that I can preach. He should be cautious also that while preaching I should not be crushed, collapsed, or leave. That is also not good, because if that happens, then the whole purpose is lost. And we should not take another extreme of not going out and preaching. So we should preach, going little extra. At the same time, we save ourselves. So the whole process of having brahmachari classes, the coming to temple, attending Mangalartis, taking the association, doing courses like this, that should give enough nourishment. On that basis, we should be able to go out. It's like that. That's how in the English they say that the safest place for ships is the harbor, but they are not supposed to be there. It's like safest place for the ships is harbor. You understand? Port, बंदर. तो जो शिप होता है वो बंदरगाह में सबसे ज्यादा सेफ रहता है, बट उसको वहां पे नहीं रहना चाहिए. तो क्या फायदा फिर रह गया था. So similarly, it's safe like if you are like taking the whole thing, but then we are supposed to go out also. So that dynamic will be always there till death. So depending on our own capacity, we have to think how much I can do. And it is not that we always do that. If somebody has gone out and then he is feeling very dry, or he has he feels that now I need more nourishment, he comes back. Like when the fighting soldiers are there, somebody is wounded, हाथ में 2 गोली लगाए, उसको नहीं बोलते नहीं आप जाओ, तो उसको वापस लेके आते हैं, हॉस्पिटल में डालते हैं, 10 दिन रहता है वहाँ पे, वापस जाता है. So it's like a dynamic. So how much to preach, when to preach, that is like has to be decided. So this is a very nice slok Nag Muni instructs Parchitas. So we'll chant this and then go ahead. So this is instruction to everybody. Nag Muni is giving this instruction to Prachetas. दयया सर्वभूतेषु संतुष्ट्या येन केन वा सर्वेन्द्रियोपशान्त्या च तुष्यत्याशु जनार्दनः. So 3 things he says which gives great pleasure to Janardana. Tushyati ashu. Ashu means very quickly. The Lord is pleased. First, he talks about Dayaya Sarvabhuteshu. Preach Krishna consciousness. Santushtya Yena Kenava. And then whatever facilities are there, be happy. So, if you can just, bare minimum facilities are there, where and then Sarvendriya Upashantyacha, controlling the senses. So when you do these 3 things, Tushyati Ashu Janardana, Lord becomes very quickly pleased. Somebody can read the translation?
By showing mercy to all living entities, being satisfied somehow or other, and controlling the senses from self-enjoyment, one can very quickly satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead Janardana.
Yeah. So, showing mercy, and then being satisfied, and controlling the senses. He says if you do these 3 things, so this is what is needed to be done for a preacher. Every preacher should take care of these 3 things to please the Supreme Lord quickly. That is Narada. Okay, so we'll go to text 23. सत्सेवया दीर्घयापि जाता मयि दृढामतिः त्वावद्यमिमं लोकं गन्तामज्जनतामसि. Read the translation.
By service of absolute truth, even for a few days, devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in me. Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds.
Yeah. So he said Sat Sevaya Dirghaya Adirghayapi. Adirgha means not long. Dirgha means very far, not like long. Adirgha means very short. So Prabhupada writes in the translation, by service to of the absolute truth, even for few days, a devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in me. Jata Mayi Dudhamati. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, serving the absolute truth means rendering service unto the absolute personality of Godhead, not alone. How?
Direction.
Under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, who is a transparent via medium between the Lord and the neophyte devotee. So, then he writes that therefore, under the direction of spiritual master, he is trained in transcendental service of the Lord, and by such training, even for some days, the neophyte devotee gets intelligence in such transcendental service, which leads him ultimately to get free from perpetual inhabitation in the material world and to be promoted to the transcendental world, to become one of the liberated associates of the Lord in the kingdom of God. So, the point is that if we are getting trained even for a few days, that itself is a great opportunity, fortune for that conditioned soul. Even little bit. So that's how, even if somebody joins, even for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 40 years, oh, it's very nice. That at least he is trained nicely. Even for short days, he gets that. Because we see that those who came and served Prabhupada, some served Prabhupada for 10 years. And when Prabhupada left, then they also left. But in that 10 years, what advancement they did, we cannot do that advancement in 100 years also, 1000 years also. Because the kind of help they did Prabhupada when Prabhupada needed the most, and then they were there. So, just by that little assistance, whatever way they did, that was a great opportunity for that conditioned soul to go to the perfection. We see that Ananta Shanti Prabhu, who was in Russia, he just got 3 days association of Prabhupada. 3 days means it's like, that is Adirghaya. 3 days means nothing. Just imagine, you just see your spiritual master only 3 days. Prabhupada didn't go there again. So in his whole life, only 3 days he had association of Prabhupada. But then, just one man, and then the whole Russia was on fire after some time. Now more than 300 centers are there in Russia. So, just one Adirghaya Sat Sevaya, that has that much effect. Yeah.
Here we see कि पहले भगवान बोल रहे हैं कि आपका सर्विस इनकम्प्लीट है, मतलब अनट्रेंड है, और अभी प्रोपर बोल रहे हैं कि थोड़ा सा ट्रेनिंग से भी हो
Yeah. So, the acharyas they tell that actually there was no lack in Narada Muni. Narada Muni was almost purified. Lord wanted him to become more intense. So it is a degree of intensity what Lord was wanting him to increase. It is not that he was in.
not incomplete.
So he was not on the stage of Anartha Nivritti. He was on the stage of Bhava. And from there he wanted to increase prema and increased intensity in prema. Like that. So like that. For that he told that you are incomplete. So that he will feel to go more faster. Like that. Okay. So this is the title. When you do Krishna Seva, then you get Krishna Bhava. So if you are serving, then you get Krishna consciousness. We see that how Prabhupada disciples, when the beginning, when Prabhupada was alone, they came, they started serving, and they also didn't understand when they became devotees. Like that. So, this our Prabhupada was asked this question, how to become Krishna conscious? And Prabhupada gave varieties of answers. Anybody?
Being with
Devotees. Huh?
How to be Krishna conscious?
Being
Huh?
Krishna conscious.
serving Krishna.
Three different times this question was asked. So once Prabhupada said, Prabhupada was about to go from that temple, and this devotee, so that Prabhupada said desire. And if you have a desire to become Krishna conscious, then you can become Krishna conscious. In one of the lectures, Prabhupada says that if you have a longing for Krishna, then you become Krishna conscious. Longing to be with devotees, longing to serve, then you become Krishna conscious. Third, he says that if you are anxious for Krishna or anxious for service, anxious. So we can see that if somebody has to become Krishna conscious, he has to come in this category. Either he has to be longing or he should become anxious. For example, you give him some service and then that service makes him anxious to make it nice and like that. So that's how he is getting purified. He will become Krishna conscious very soon if he is taking anxiety for Krishna. So that's how we see that Prabhupada made that desire to serve Krishna grow in the hearts of his disciples. That is the perfect leader. Perfect leader means he increases that desire. And then facilities will come anyway. But then that desire to increase, that is, and we can see also that Krishna also is acting here same way. He wants to increase the desire of Narada Muni to become more intense. That's how Krishna dealt with gopis also. When gopis came, he told Hare Krishna, you have come here, nice forest is there, so you saw it, so go back. It's not good. So, why he was doing like that? To increase their desire. So, that's how Krishna works. We saw that Bharat Maharaj, he was already on the Bhava stage. And he could have gradually attained Prema stage also. But Krishna's plan was different. He made such a trick that he was practically drowned in the ocean of guilt or ocean of remorse. But then that ocean of remorse was very conducive to immediately bring him to then he could merge in the ocean of love for Krishna. So sometimes Krishna does that, just to make that process quick. That's what he did for Chitraketu also.
I somewhere heard that Krishna did this because if he would have attained perfection in the jungle and had left the life and his body, then the teachings that he gave to Maharaj Raghunath could not be able to do. So to make that arrangement, Krishna did this.
Yeah, many things are there. Krishna can have 100 things done by one activity. Yeah. Text 24.
What is the difference between longing, being anxious, desiring,
To have Krishna.
Anxious is if you have given some service to somebody. For example, prasadam serving is there, and then prasad khatam hone aaya, and then 200 people are in the queue. Then that is anxiety. It purifies. So that is very nice. And then you run around, try to do something like that. The longing is that when some Maharaj has come and then he's giving so many classes, so then you cut down all other arrangements and you want to come here and hear. So that is longing. Okay. No.
How to develop this longing?
So that's how now the whole process is this way. Longing is developed by association of those devotees who are having that longing. Text 24. मतिर्मयि निबध्येयम् न विपद्येत कर्हिचे प्रजासर्गनिरोधेऽपि स्मृतिश्च मदनुग्रहात्.
Translation: Intelligence engaged in my devotion, it cannot be thwarted at any time, even at the time of creation as well as the time of annihilation. Your remembrance will continue by my mercy.
Okay, so here the that answer is given by the Lord only, because who has asked this question? No. The Lord is telling here that when you even change the body by my anugraha, you will remember. Huh?
Vedvas has asked this.
Vedvas had asked that how did you remember? So that is the thing. Okay. We have to go today little fast. So some shlokas will not take, will take only translation. Can somebody read translation of 25th?
Then that supreme authority, personified by sound and unseen by eyes, but most wonderful, stopped speaking. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I offer my obeisances unto him, bowing my head.
So he was very feeling grateful to the Lord for his appearance and then with his kind words, and then he paid obeisances. Prabhupada writes in the purport in the last line, the conclusion is that the Lord can be seen and heard by persistent chanting of the transcendental sound. So if you just keep chanting, one day you will hear the Lord. Text 26. नामानिनन्तस्य हतत्र पठन् गुह्यानि भद्राणि कृतानि च स्मरन् गां पर्यटन् स्तुष्टमनागतस्पृहः कालं प्रतीक्षन् विमदो विमत्सरः. Translation.
Thus, I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitations, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are benedictory. So, doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and envious.
Yeah. So the Prabhupada writes in the purport, the life of a sincere devotee of the Lord is thus explained in a nutshell by Nand Muni in his personal example. So, in nutshell means in short, what are the how the devotee kind of arranges his life, passes his life, or what are the activities of that devotee, sincere devotee, that is given in this one shloka. So here some qualities are given, that he chants the holy name of the Lord, and then some qualities are given here. Yeah. So he says, Gam Paryatans Tushtamana. Gam Paryatan means? Gam is a earth. Paryatan. That he travels. Tushtamana.
Fully satisfied.
Satisfied. Gataspruha. Completely free from all material desires. So the same three things you saw in that Prachita's sloka. You remember? Daya sarvabhuteshu santushtya yenake nama sarvendriya upashantya cha. So, and then one more additional thing is there. Kalam pratikshan means
Time away.
He awaits the mercy of the Lord. He is not eager, he's eager, but still awaiting. So, so dhairya also is needed. And then vimada vimatsaraha. Vimada means without being proud. Vimatsaraha means without being envious. So, devotee without being proud, without being envious, he moves around all over the world, fully satisfied, completely free from material desires, awaiting Lord's mercy. So, this is how a devotee should lead in one's life. Prabhupada writes in the purport, such devotee has no desire for material gain. They are conducted by one single desire, and that is to go back to Godhead. So, if that desire is there to go back home, back to Godhead, all other things can be very easily taken care. Other qualities. If our desire is not to go back home, back to Godhead, but then some other things are there, he wants some material benefits, he wants some material prestige, he wants some material. Okay. What happened?
Desire.
Yeah, so is that Prabhupada writes here, because they have the highest aim of life, going back to Godhead, they are never envious of anyone, nor they are proud of being eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. Their only business is to chant and remember the holy name, fame and pastime of the Lord. So, by having a very high goal, then you don't envy with small people. For example, generally, why fight happens in this world? Because of some material gains. But then somebody doesn't want material gains, he is wanting to achieve Krishna consciousness. Then he feels that why I should fight? Why should I envy? What I'll get by doing that competition? So, that's how we see that when Rupa Goswami was this Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, they were challenged by one big Rupnare. They said, okay, क्या चाहिए तुमको? Science चाहिए ना? Whatever. Then they immediately they gave. So, why? Because they felt that we are here for achieving Krishna consciousness. Why should I waste my time in arguing with this person? So, that's how they become free of all such nitty-gritties. So, like that. That's how we see that all these difficulties, small difficulties, becomes very easily crossed by having a very high goal. Generally, we see that that's how in English they say that the pebbles on the path start giving more pain when you lose the focus of the goal. If your focus is very clear, then you don't get so much hurt by the pebbles down. But when goal also is not clear, you don't know when you will reach, then small pebbles also becomes very problematic. Then small fights here there, they become very prominent. They take so much, they occupy our mind so much. Little less in the facilities, they occupy our consciousness so much. Some little difficulties here there, they become overpowering. But then to the degree one is very clear, this life is just for 50-60 years. Why should I be so much worried about so many things? I just want to go back home, back to Godhead. And then this world will remain here with all its problems. Problems cannot be solved. What I can do is, whatever service I am doing, that should be done properly. If some problems are there, that I'll sort it out. So, that's how the karmis are very attached to living in this world. Jnanis are attached to leaving the world. And devotees are attached to serving. They are not either attached to living in this world or leaving this world. They are attached to going and serving Krishna, whether here or there.
Prabhu, why still Prabhupada again and again emphasizes going back to Godhead thing?
Because that is our natural position.
So it's also leaving the world.
Yeah, but then the highest thing is that, as Prahlad Maharaj says, that I don't want to leave this world. If even one foolish person is here without Krishna consciousness, I want to stay back and make him Krishna conscious. So in the beginning, we have that desire to go back home, back to Godhead, so that we take the process properly. But in the highest understanding of Gaudiya Vaishnava is not going back to Godhead. So that also can become like a selfish. So, what is that? Maunam charanti vijane na paratmanishta. So, Bhagavatam says that some people, they just take maun, they go to the forest, sit in some cave, and then they don't have that eagerness to help others. But then Gaudiya Vaishnava specifically, they have that. That is our the legacy given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is this, that we are not just satisfied getting delivered alone. So somehow this Prabhupada says that because they have a highest aim, they are not envious, and he says that they are very humble also, they are not proud. So both things are generally not like at in one box it doesn't come. Somebody has a very high goal. Somebody has to become, say, IAS or something. Generally people are not so humble then. They have some attitude like that. But here we have the highest goal and still we are humble. Like we see Kaviraj Goswami, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami. He says that I am lower than the worm in the stool. But he said, at the other side, Gaudiya Vaishnava feel that I cannot be happy lesser than the love of the gopis. I want that only. I am here, but I want that. So that is a very amazing combination. Okay. Yeah.
So, could you please elaborate on Hatha Trapa, leaving aside the formalities of material world?
So, yeah, that. So, Hata Trapaha means being freed from all formalities of material world. So, what is your question?
Kindly elaborate on it, Roji, for our understanding. Like how do we see this? क्योंकि हम लोग सारी चीज़ फॉर्मेलिटी फॉलो करते हैं.
The formalities actually means social formalities. किसी का शादी है, and then he joined Grahastha counselor, and then that Grahastha counselor had some around 100 families were there under him, and then every day the message will come. Today evening there is a birthday festival of some किसी के घर में. दूसरे दिन मैसेज आएगा कि इसके भाई का शादी है किसी का, तो सब लोग आना है. और तो उसने कैलकुलेट किया कि दिन हफ्ते में 4 दिन तो उसमें ही जाते हैं. तो वो कैलकुलेट करता कि फिर ऐसा दिन जिंदगी भर चला तो कितने सारे शादियाँ, कितने सारे बर्थडेज, कितने सारे हो जाए. सो आफ्टर थिंकिंग, बिकॉज ही वाज अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, सो वो कैलकुलेशन का एकदम so then he shifted. He joined early, thinking that it is too much official things. So what we have, official thing is social kind of dealings which have nothing to give and take with direct Krishna consciousness. So that we should avoid as much as possible. Okay. And then Prabhupada writes, according to personal capacity to distribute the message of others' welfare without motive of material gain. Text 27, translation. Somebody can read.
And so, Brahmana Vyasadeva, in due course of time, I, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, and who therefore had no attachments, being completely freed from all material taints, met with death, as lightning and illumination occurs simultaneously.
Yeah. So, basically, when he left his body and he got the spiritual body, that happened very within a moment. That both things happened simultaneously, that he is leaving the body and then he is getting the transcendental body. Yeah. Okay. Translation of 28.
Having been awarded a transcendental body, befitting an associate of personality of Godhead, I quit the body made of 5 elements, material elements, and thus all occurred through 2 result of work, karma, stopped.
Yeah. So he gave up this body, which was karma. All the karma is finished, all the bank account nil, and then he left like that. Prabhupada writes in the purport that how when devotee body, when it is surcharged with spiritual ambience, then that body also becomes spiritual. So he is telling that Narad Muni's body had already become spiritual by the Lord's presence, the way the Guru's body is not considered material, because that is 100% engaged in Krishna's service. So, seeing Guru as an ordinary person, or the deity as stone, or Vaishnava Jati Buddhi, that is Naraki, that will take us to hell. But then here we see that Narad Muni left his body, and so the acharyas, they describe that Narad Muni leaving the body, that is almost equal to Krishna leaving the body. Krishna also left his body, and then so many people, they say that how Krishna is who, then they burnt the body of Krishna, and then why Krishna leave the body then? So to keep the atheists only, make sure that they have some point to say that you see Krishna is ordinary. So to segregate atheists completely, the Lord does this. So similarly, Narad Muni also, his leaving the body also is spiritual, not material, like us. When conditioned soul leaves the body. Okay. Yes.
Krishna is so merciful.
And if he had lived in a he would have left his body in a transcendental way. Then those who are atheist would also have become a devotee. So
Yeah.
why he did not do that?
No. Devotees do in both ways. The Lord does that from different angles. Like you see how the Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj left his body. So even so many non-devotees, they were coming and they were surprised and they were taking great inspiration. That this is how. So Lord has different plans for different devotees. Some are extraordinarily leave the body even to impress atheists, and sometimes they may just want to just conceal themselves and live like an ordinary person, so that another purpose is served. 29th.
I'm asking about Krishna himself.
That's what I'm telling. So Krishna sometimes will act transcendently to give faith even to the atheists, and sometimes he may act very human-like, just because that time the purpose is different. He may act differently at different times to fulfill many purposes. It's not one purpose only, always.
That's why he spoke that word, Janma.
So only that's the thing is, that person who has this idea, God should be like this, he will not become devotee. He should accept, however he is my God. So Krishna wants us to come to that level. That we should not tell God, you be like this. God says, then I'll show you who am I. So we cannot make God fit in our square. God has his own. So it's for art. 29th translation.
At the end of the millennium, when the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, lay down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter into him along with all creative elements. And I also entered through his breathing.
So Narad Muni is telling that at the end of the Brahma's life, everything was getting devastated, and then he entered into the Lord. Prabhupada writes in the purport that Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam also applies for devotees also, as the way the Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam applies to the Lord. Text 30. Translation.
After 43 solar years, when Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord, all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Adri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord, and I also appeared along with them.
So this this is a 430 crores solar years. Yeah. Text 31. Translation.
Since then, by the grace of the Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the three divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord.
So Prabhupada writes in the purport that because Narad Muni was free from all the bondage, all material limitations, all limitations created by the three guna, and that's how he could travel everywhere. Yeah. Text 32. Translation.
And thus I travel, constantly singing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called a veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna.
Yeah. So this veena was given to Narad Muni by Krishna. Devadatta veena, he says. That the Lord has given. Tumburu is another sage only. So, in the Prabhupada writes Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Da, Ni, Sa, that they are the original sounds. And then the Lord is served by that original sounds. And then Prabhupada writes, as a pure devotee of the Lord, Sri Narada Dev is always fulfilling his obligation to the Lord for his gift of the instrument. And thus he is always engaged in singing its transcendental glories and is therefore infallible in his exalted position. So, Krishna gave a perfect gift to Narad Muni of veena, and then he could sing on it and then do preaching. So similarly, we also have got one gift, bead bag. So it is Devadatta that the Lord has given through the spiritual master. We should also sing on it and then preach, go around. Actually, it is not different. Whereas if Krishna has to give us, how he will give? He will give through spiritual master only. So there is no difference between offering to Krishna or offering to spiritual master. Similarly, there is no difference between coming from Krishna and coming from spiritual master. Same only. Because this was asked to Prabhupada, one letter is there. Somebody asked that, Prabhupada, sometimes time is not there, or sometimes devotees don't know the whole mantra, how to offer bhoga. Prabhupada said, just chant prayer to spiritual master, and then spiritual master will do that other procedures. Because you just give to him and then he will give to Krishna. So that means when you, even on the altar, if you don't have time, and then if you just give it to spiritual master, that is taken care. So giving to spiritual master is giving to Krishna only. Similarly, coming from spiritual master is equal to coming from Krishna. So the Narad Muni had a favor done by the Lord, and then by giving this Devadatta veena, so the Lord has given all of us also that instrument which we can chant and feel fortunate. Text 33, translation.
The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart as if called for as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities.
So that is the speciality of Narad Muni, that whenever he chants, Krishna appears. It's like that. Prabhupada writes in the purport that As soon as a pure devotee engages himself in a pure devotional service of hearing, chanting, and remembering the name, fame, and activities of the Lord, at once he becomes visible to the transcendental eyes. He becomes visible. He means Krishna becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. Prabhupada writes. So, the spiritual television is enacted. It starts as the pure devotee sings, chants, like that. Yeah. So, there are many kind of devotees also. Once he was telling that Gaur Govind Maharaj was telling that whenever devotee chant means Krishna come in front. Simple. Like that he was telling. So, and he said if that is not there, he should not give initiation. He should not become guru. Like that. So that was his standard.
Become sannyasi also. Yes.
He said that the Lord has to be visible, then he becomes a guru. Like that. So then he was told, but this is too difficult. He said, okay, at least when he is chanting Hare Krishna, he should not think something else other than the Lord. Then the Lord should be present. So for pure devotees like that, that's how Narad Muni is. That for him there is no other reality than Krishna. And then Prabhupada writes in the ending part, if therefore the Lord is attracted by pure devotees chanting of his glories, there is nothing astonishing. Why? Because the chanting and the Lord's personal presence, they are non-different. And then Prabhupada writes in the last line of the purport, Narad Muni penetrates into the presence of the Lord by the transcendental chanting. What it means? Narad Muni merged in Lord or what? Prabhupada writes, Narad Muni penetrates into the presence of the Lord by the transcendental chanting. Yeah. So, penetrate doesn't mean that, or when I say that, the scriptures give this understanding, that when I say that king entered kingdom, means what? He became merged in the kingdom? Or he became the road of the kingdom, building of the kingdom? King entered into the kingdom. That's how in Bhagavad Gita, one shloka it says, he comes to me. He enters in me. So enters in me means what? It's not necessarily he has to merge. Enters means king also enters kingdom and then remains there. So similarly here, you see that Narad Muni entered to serve the Lord. That's it. Text 34. It's very important verse. Let's chant. एतद्ध्यातुरचित्तानां मात्रा स्पर्शेच्छया मुहुः भवसिन्धुप्लवो दृष्टो हरिचर्यानुवर्णनम्. So here the problem and solution is given. Etad he Atura Chittanam means those whose minds are always full of cares and anxieties. So, what is the problem and then what is the solution? Translation, somebody?
It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nations on a most suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead.
So very clearly Narad Muni, because he had seen it in his own personal life, and he had seen now the whole world, not only this world but the whole universe, and so many universes. So his solution has the most reputed, authentic solution. So he says the problem is sense gratification and solution is Krishna consciousness. Plain. He says, Etadhi aturchittana matra sparse chayamuhu. Why they are aturchitta? Why they are so disturbed? Because they want matra sparsha. That they want their senses to be in touch with the sense gratification objects. Like that. So that touch gives them aturchitta, that anxieties. But then bhavasindhu plavo drushto hari charyanu varnanam. But then when there is a hari charyanu varnanam, there is Krishna consciousness, hearing about the Lord, then one can cross over this bhavasindhu. So the Prabhupada writes, that is called Maya. Almost 3-4 lines after the beginning purport. He says, this is called Maya, or what is not. That which cannot give them satisfaction is accepted as an object of for satisfaction. So the sense gratification which cannot satisfy, but then that is considered as the means to satisfy. For example, the petrol is not the right way to diminish the fire. It will increase the fire. But then somebody wants to put off the fire with petrol. That is like madness. So that's what happens with the conditioned soul, that what is exactly cause of suffering, he wants to increase it. And then feels that by that I'll be happy. Okay. Okay. Text 35. Translation.
It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah. So he's telling that the only by restraint of the senses, the sense gratification the episode is not over, because still we see that some lingering desire is there for sense gratification, even if you have stopped senses from sense object. And that's how, unless we fully engage our senses in Krishna's service, that is not going to go away. Yeah. So Prabhupada writes, in the service of Lord Mukunda, the senses are transcendently engaged, and that's how one comes out of that hunger of that senses. Prabhupada gives the example of Vishwamitra Muni also, that he did so much of control, but then one Menka came and then the whole thing was topsy-turvy. But then Thakur Haridas, he was allured by Maya Devi herself, but he did not become entrapped. Why? Because he was completely under shelter of Krishna through his spiritual engagement in chanting Hare Krishna. So pure devotional service of the Lord without being tinged with fruitive work, mystic yoga or speculative philosophy is the foremost procedure to attain self-realization. So bhakti without any karma or jnana, that has to be practiced, then that is safest process. Otherwise, other processes have so many problems. Text 36. Translation.
O Vyasdev, you are freed from all sins. Thus, I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization, as you asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also.
Yeah. So, now the Narad Muni is telling that, see, I have told you the whole thing. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, the process of devotional activities from the beginning to the stage of transcendence is all duly explained to satisfy the inquiries of Vyasadeva. He has explained how the seed of devotional service were sown by transcendental association and how they gradually developed by hearing the sages. The result of such hearing is detachment from the worldliness. So much so that even a small boy could receive the death news of his mother, who was his only caretaker, as the blessing of the Lord. So, Narad Muni, down from the Adav Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava Prem, and then the highest of Prem. So, in one life of Narad Muni, everything is shown by his own personal example. Prabhupada writes in the end, all the mysteries of transcendental realization are fully experienced by Narad Muni himself, and therefore by hearing such an authority, one can have some idea of the result of devotional life, which are hardly delineated even in the original text of the Vedas. So Vedas also cannot actually very clear-cut way tell us how to advance. But then the Bhagavatam describes it very clearly. Just one life of Narad Muni is sufficient to know what we should do and what we should not do, and what happens when somebody becomes perfect like that. And then now Sutta Goswami starts glorifying Narad Muni. So last whole section was how the Lord gave instruction to Narad Muni. So this 20 to 25, that was the instruction and consolation of Narad Muni. And then after that, the 26th onwards. Then he was telling that how the whole life sketch is given in short, and then now after concluding, Narad Muni leaves. So now the Sutta Goswami glorifies Narad Muni, because this whole thing is text 37. Sutta uvacha evam sambhashya bhagavan narado va savishutam amantrya veenam ranayan yayau yadruchiko munihi. Somebody?
Sutta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Shri Narad Muni took leave from him and vibrating on his veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will.
Yeah, so this verse is freedom verse. You can see how many times the freedom has come in the verse purport. Very nice purport, Prabhupada writes. Read.
Every living being is anxious for full freedom because that is his transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord. Illusioned by the external energy, everyone thinks that he is free, but actually he is bound by the laws of nature. A conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth, and what to speak of one planet to another. But a full-fledged free soul like Narada, always engaged in chanting the Lord's glory,
He is free to move not only on earth but also in any part of the earth, as well as
Go ahead, go ahead.
just missed it. But a full-fledged free soul like Narada, always engaged in chanting of Lord's glory, is free to move not only on earth but also in any part of the universe, as well as in any part of the spiritual state. We can just imagine the extent, the unlimitedness of his as good as
Speak
that of,
without mic. Speak without mic.
which is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason or obligation for his traveling, and no one can stop him from his free movement. Similarly, the transcendental system devotion service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of devotees is also free. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it even after thousands of years. Therefore, in all spheres of devotion service, freedom is the main point, main pivot. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotion service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord. Freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that a devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender on to the Lord through the transparent medium of spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life.
Yeah. Very beautiful purport Prabhupada writes about the freedom. So, generally in outside world, surrender and freedom, they are two opposite things. But then in spiritual life, the surrender and freedom, they are same. So more you surrender, more you become free. And then the example is Narada. He surrendered to the Lord fully, and then he became free fully. If you surrender to Krishna partially, then you become partially free. To that degree, whatever we surrender. So Prabhupada writes that every living being is anxious to full freedom, because that's how he is. The soul is supposed to be fully free. But then, illusioned by the external energy, everyone thinks that he is free, but actually he is not free. For example, somebody may say that I am free to smoke cigarette. Is he free to smoke cigarette?
No, bounded by his senses.
Urge to smoke.
Condition.
He's in
Yeah.
the mode of ignorance.
Yeah. So he is bound by the gunas. He is bound by his desires. Sometimes he doesn't want to smoke, but then he is forced to smoke. So that shows that he is not free to smoke. So one person was telling that I take tobacco and I have full control over it. Whenever I want, then only I take. So that is just to say, it doesn't happen like that. So the first thing is, he is not free because the desires are so strong. Somebody may say that yes, but I am smoking from my own pocket. I pay for it. I want it. What is your problem? I am free to smoke. Yes, you may be free to smoke. You may be free for doing that activity, but you are not free from the result of that activity. That you have to take. One may say that I am free to eat in restaurant. So, एक restaurant पे ऐसे लिखा था, free entry.
But not free exit.
Exit is not free. Entry is free. So, you may say that free activity, but you have to pay for it while going. So the one is not free completely. Somebody may say that I am staying in the free nation. India is freedom. So free nation. I am a free citizen of free India, and I have a car license also. So I can drive freely. Yes, you can drive freely, but then you cannot break the laws. If red is there, you have to stop. You can't say that I am free. Yes, you can freely break and then get caught and then you have to pay for it. So that is not freedom then. That is half freedom. No? You are free to do the activity, but then you have to pay for it. Then what is the freedom? So people feel that they are free, but then they are illusioned to think that they are free. So sense gratification gives the sense of freedom, and then afterwards you have to pay a huge price. The whole purpose of Maya is like this only. Now they have started these credit cards. So you go to some mall and then you feel that okay, this 20,000, no problem, give it. 30,000, give it. Why? Because you don't have to pay from your pocket. You feel that credit card wala paying. But who is paying? You are only paying, man. Although you don't have money, because while giving money, tension aa jata hai. You know, things are going hand. But then वो swapping में पता ही नहीं लगता है. 1,000, 10,000, 1 lakh. So that is an illusioned way of thinking that everything is free only, and then whole life he has to suffer under tension. Yeah.
You said that surrender and freedom is one of the spiritual life is one. And here we are saying that we are nation, free nation, we are citizens, but still we have to follow the rules. We are
In
not free.
material world.
Material. So we have to follow the rules. Somebody can say you surrender, still you also have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
So all rules and regulations you have to follow. Then how you are also not free.
Yeah.
Same logic will apply here.
Yeah. So in the material world also we have to follow the rules and regulations, and in spiritual world also we have to follow the rules and regulations. But then the following rules and regulations of a spiritual person in the neophyte stage, and the following of rules and regulations of a person at the pure devotee level, they are different. The neophyte is told to come for Mangalarti. Pure devotee, he cannot live without coming to Mangalarti. He also follows that rule, but that whether that rule is there or not, he doesn't care. He will anyway come because he is so eager. So we are following the rules so that we can go beyond the rules. So here Prabhupada writes that association is also free, and the bhakti also is free. Free means it is not dependent on anything. Like bhakti result depends on Krishna only. It doesn't depend on, so bhakti doesn't depend on my performance of bhakti. Bhakti depends on Krishna's reciprocation. When he mercifully gives that advancement, then that advancement comes. So there is no formula. And then he says that even the association of devotee also is free. Free in a sense, you can't enclose it. You can't formalize it. That's how sometimes somebody may want association, but then he is not having association. And somebody is given association kind of freely. So that is the freedom the Lord and his devotees have. Yeah. Okay, then the text 38. अहो देवर्षिर्धन्योऽयं यत्कीर्तिं शार्धन्वनः गायन्माद्यन्निदन् तन्त्र्या रमयत्यातुरं जगत्.
Translation. All glories and success to Srila Narad Muni, because he glorifies the activity of personality of God. And so doing, he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed soul of the universe.
Yeah.
Purport. Sri Narad Muni plays on his instrument to glorify the transcendental activities of Lord, and to give relief to all miserable living entities of the universe. No one is happy herein. No one is happy here within the universe. And what is felt as happiness is Maya's illusion. The illusory energy of the Lord is so strong that even the hog who lives on filthy stool filthy stool feels happy. No one can be truly happy within the material world. Srila Narad Muni, in order to enlighten the miserable inhabitants, wanders everywhere. His mission is to get them back home, back to Godhead. That is the mission of all genuine devotees of the Lord, following the footsteps of that great sage. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of first canto, 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Conversation Between Narada and Vyasadeva.
So here, Sutta Goswami is talking that all glories and success to Narad Muni, because he glorifies the activities of personality of Godhead, and doing so he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed soul of the universe. Prabhupada writes, no one is happy here in the universe, and what is felt as happiness is Maya's illusion. And then Prabhupada writes very amazing example. Prabhupada writes that the illusory energy of the Lord is so strong that even the hog who lives on filthy stool feels happy. So sometimes people they say that we are happy, but then we have to see that what is the level of that happiness. The devotee is happy chanting Hare Krishna, and person he is happy smoking. Some person is happy eating meat. The hog is happy eating stool. So everybody is happy. Pure devotee is also happy. Meat eater is also happy. One who drinks alcohol is also happy. Dog is happy. Hog is happy. It appears that whole world is happy. Spiritual world only. But then it's not like that. It only appears happy. So when hog is eating stool, is that happiness? Prabhupada writes like this. He asks, what do you think? It's happy? So you have seen that small book of Prabhupada, Teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. Very powerful. So the Devamrit Maharaj was telling in his one of the class, because he came in touch with devotees and then he was reading Prabhupada books, and then he was very rich, his father and like that, some very high college in the America he was doing his degree, and then he got that book, small book, and he was telling that I was reading, and he had many friends, girlfriend, this, that, life was going very nicely. Because he was rich also, everything was like so many friends. So he was telling that I was sitting on the coach and just reading it. And then he said that this line came. That Prabhupada writes that even a hog is happy in this material world. And then he says, one may argue, how can you say like this? But then he says, Prabhupada writes that we can see that those hogs who eat stool, they are very fat. So how can somebody become fat without being happy? So that means they are happy. So they are happily eating the stool and that is gaining their weight. So actually they are happy. So then Prabhupada goes on telling that, but that is the third class happiness. So he was telling that that punch was so strong that Prabhupada was just telling that even hog is happy, so don't think that your happiness is something else. So just because you are feeling you are happy, that doesn't end the story. Because the stool eating hog also is happy. So when Maharaj was telling that when he saw devotees first time, he saw that they are looking happy and he was very attracted. But what they were doing, that he did not like. On the street dancing and then putting tilak and then shaving and things like that. So he said, and when he talked to them, their philosophy was like, we are going to die, going to spiritual world, no sense gratification over there. So he did not like it. So he said that I like devotees, darshan. Shravan nahi. Their philosophy was not so like that. So then he was telling that the devotees used to come on TV that time, some interviews here. He said I liked seeing them. So when I used to put on the TV, I used to mute it and then watch it. I used to love them, they're very nice people. But I don't want to hear what they say because their philosophy is very negative. So he was reading this book. So he said that punched me. He was almost I fall from the coach where he was. And then he started saying, who is this person who has written all these things? Then he saw that Prabhupada is there. So actually these words coming out of great compassion and realization can awaken any conditioned soul from clutches of Maya, where everybody is illusion that we are happy. So if somebody says that we are happy, then we have to ask what level of happiness. Because everybody is happy. Like Prabhupada was हिंदी में था वो, यहीं पे था नहीं तो मुंबई या गुजरात में एक रिपोर्टर पूछ रहा था, स्वामी जी क्या आपके मंदिर में गरीब लोग नहीं आ सकते? प्रभुपाद बोला ये क्या क्वेश्चन है? हमने कहा मंदिर में आपने बोर्ड देखा क्या कि गरीब लोग नहीं आ सकते करके? बोला नहीं, वो ऐसा बोर्ड तो नहीं देखा, लेकिन हमने देखा कि बहुत बड़े बड़े लोग ही आते हैं, तो गरीब लोगों को वहाँ पे अलाउ है कि नहीं पूछा था। बोले नहीं, सबको अलाउ है। प्रभुपाद बोले सब गरीब है, करोड़पति भी गरीब है, अरबपति भी गरीब है, फुटपाथ पे रहने वाला सब गरीब है, तो हमारा टेम्पल सब गरीबों के लिए ही है, आओ। तो प्रभुपाद उसको पकड़े फिर, तुम क्यों नहीं आते? तो बोला नहीं, मेरा तो काम चल रहा है, मैं खुश हूँ। तो he was telling that because मैं खुश हूँ तो मुझे मंदिर आने की क्या जरूरत है? जो लोग खुश नहीं है वो मंदिर आए हैं। तो बोला मैं तो खुश हूँ। तो प्रभुपाद बोले धोबी का गधा भी खुश रहता है। तो चुप ही बैठ गया, कुछ बुझाएंगे। So here Prabhupada says that even a hog who lives on a filthy stool feels happy. So we have to ask, there are so many types of happiness, but then the real happiness is what pleases the Lord. When the Lord becomes happy, then that is what happiness we need. Otherwise we are also happy eating feast. We are also happy just going around. It's just happy life. But the real happiness is happiness of Krishna. So that is what is to be done. Okay, so we'll take a break here. Now it is 12, till 12:30 we'll take a break. 7 8 minutes. So devotees can chant their Gayatri and 10 minutes break. Okay, we'll meet at 12:35. 12:35 we come back. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.